Yes, everybody, what's going on? My name is Stephen Howson. This is Full Time Devils, and the Champions League is back. It is the first home Champions League game since the Sevilla game. It feels exactly the same. It feels like we played it last night. Oh my God. Joining me today, I am delighted to have David. David is a La Liga expert. He runs the La Liga Lowdown channel, so definitely check that out as well. We're delighted to have him on today to give us his input on Valencia. We've got John, and we've also got Scott joining us from Sweden. Proper international flavour again to Full Time Devils preview. What's happening, everybody? Are you all good?
Yeah, all good.
Thank you, Stephen.
Righty then. The first thing that we are going to talk about today then is, unfortunately, is Jose Mourinho done? Scott?
Not if we win against Valencia.
All right,
but overall, it's his final season. I think so. I just got to hope that we pull out the hat in the Champions League. But the league's definitely gone. I think we can all agree on that. Maybe we'll get fourth, but as long as we're in the Champions League and we're performing well, then we'll stick with him. And I don't think Ed Woodward's got any spine to actually make a decision, because he's not got involved at all from what we gather. So no, I don't think he's gone just yet. But if we're out the Champions League, then yeah, absolutely.
John, do you think the result against Valencia is going to play a massive part into what happens with Jose as a manager, or do you think his fate is sealed, or do you think he's safe until we're out of the Champions League and we're out of the top four in the league like previous managers?
I think it'll definitely be a stepping stone in the inevitable exit for Jose Mourinho. To be honest, I've always been sort of supportive in whatever sense, but nonetheless, it's gotten to a point for Jose Mourinho where he's building himself, or setting himself up rather, for this impending doom that he's not only, casted upon himself in his own career, but at Manchester United as well. And I think it's just very sad and dark times coming up again. And you just mentioned that it feels like yesterday we played Sevilla, and it's horrible. I mean, that was last year. In that time period, we had a full window. We had so many other opportunities to make amends of what went wrong last season. And here we are again talking about Jose Mourinho exiting. And I mean, irrespective of whether or not he exits at the end of the season or exits in December or October, it doesn't matter. I think the fact that he's already kind of set this team up for this massive level of negativity is already disappointing. I mean, the fact that he's started Scott McTominay already tells you he doesn't trust his own Eric Bailly. The fact that he's hooked Pogba, the fact that he's hooked Sanchez, the fact that his players last season who turned up aren't turning up, like Lukaku, like Lingard, like Matic. It's just bad, and it's just pure just doom and gloom. It's got doom spelled everywhere. Maybe we're just a letter short of doom, and I'm very worried about Manchester United right now, and I don't think Jose Mourinho has a lot left this season, unfortunately, as it may be.
Well, a letter short of doom. John thinks it's doom. Anyway, David, what's your take as a neutral on the situation at United with Jose at the minute?
Toxic is the word, isn't it? I think it's very, very close. Lose against Valencia, it could be over. I personally think that actually he'll cling on this next couple of games, but lose at Stamford Bridge, lose badly against Juventus, and I think that will be it. Look, I think we've made all the right kind of points here. When you've got those big characters who are really, not responding to his methods anymore, and he's been doing this throughout his career, using the stick more than the carrot. And these guys are not putting up with it. And I think ultimately the player power will tell. And I think he'll be gone by the end of October unless he puts a nice string of results together now.
Right, listen, let's get into something a little bit nicer. 23 years ago, the greatest human being ever to have lived made his comeback against Liverpool after suspension. And
after fighting racism.
After the start that we'd had as well. Lifts Old Trafford. Alan Hansen, what we not be kids. Blah, 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 blah. You all know the story. Eric Cantona walks back into Old Trafford and we won the league and the cup double from a pretty horrible position at the start of the season. Now, I'm going to put it to you guys. John, I'm going to come to you first. If you could bring back one Manchester United player in his prime to do what Cantona did and lead us triumphantly now to a league and cup double before the end of this season, who, or even just lighten the mood a little bit, that'd be nice, wouldn't it? Who would you have?
I think I would probably go for Rio Ferdinand. I think that'd be a pretty straightforward answer. Lots of people would rather prefer an attacking option or some sort of creative player in the midfield. Maybe a Roy Keane might have been a good option. But the reason why I went for Rio Ferdinand over Roy Keane is because Rio always brought us the perfect balance and level of quality and leadership and class on the pitch and off the pitch as well. I mean, you can hear the way he talks about, how he sat in the dressing room and he was like, all right, he played like crap. He was all right. He was good. Like, he had that elitist mentality and at the same time was able to display that on the pitch. And I think we need that in this squad more than ever to really show that level of quality and leadership. And we've sorely lacked that, especially in the defensive department. The fact that he started Scott McTominay over Eric Bailly, I say this again, shows that Jose Mourinho doesn't trust his defenders. The fact that Phil Jones continues to stay in this squad shows that we are lacking in quality. And somebody like Rio Ferdinand would be able to bring that perfect level of balance between quality and leadership in this sorely leadership lacking side.
I absolutely love that, John. I think Rio would be a brilliant option. Scott, who are you bringing back?
Well, I would have said Roy Keane, but you can't bring him back. He's too tough. And unfortunately for our snowflakes, they'll be crying even more than what they are right now. I mean, for me, it'd be someone like Brian Robson, who'd lead, obviously be inspirational. Eric Cantona is a good shout, but it would be no one tough. Be no one with any sort of discipline or any sort of,
Scott,
cracking
listen,
heads type of
I'm asking
thing.
you for one here, not a range of people. Put your money where your mouth is. I want one person.
Brian Robson, because he's the greatest.
All right. David, as a neutral, is anyone that you think this United team could bring back that would transform what we're currently doing?
Well, okay, transform. That's going to be difficult. But I tell you what, I'm going to be a little bit partial here. There's a guy who scored famously to keep Fergie his job when he was at Manchester United, and that's Steve Bruce. And he was against my team in England, Sheffield Wednesday. And I think Brucey is one of those players who, he wasn't exactly the most talented player, but he had that utter kind of drag everyone up off the floor of the dressing room, and he bled United. And I think that's the sort of character you need right now. And he would score the odd goal. He'd pop up with a header here and there. I kind of feel that that's what you need to get back to roots here. You need to get back to what United is about. I feel like you've lost your soul. I feel like, when you talk about snowflakes, about lacking leadership, well, this is the guy who is the antithesis of all that. So my vote would go to goal-scoring defender, Steve Bruce.
3 excellent shouts there. Let us know in the comments who you would have. Don't just put, because you always do this, don't just put a name. Give me a name and a good couple of sentences as to why. I would have David Beckham, because David Beckham whipping balls in for Lukaku would be like unfair. It'd be absolutely banging. So I'm bringing back David Beckham because that's another man who gets it and it'd offer us a little bit of balance on the right-hand side. Right, we're going to cut to an ad break. Right, it's time for the predicted 11s. As you know, we are running a little competition to see who can get the most on average over the whole course of the season. And I've got to say, Scott and John, you are woefully bad at doing this. Maybe that's a good thing. Maybe that's your thinking that we could pick better teams than we actually are. Maybe, I don't know. But either way, be better. David's going to pick a Valencia 11 for us. So let's go with how they're going to line up before we get into how you two lads are going to line us up. Or not.
Valencia team names itself. The first team has to be Neto in goal. Brilliant value in the transfer market. Really strong. Saved a penalty as well at the weekend at Real Sociedad. Right back, Christian Piccini. Then in the middle, Ezequiel Garay and Jason Murillo. He's the guy that got Ronaldo sent off in their first group game in the Champions League. Left side has to be Jose Gallá, plays for Spain's under-21s. The midfield is the most balanced midfield that you'll ever see. Carlos Soler, of interest to Jose Mourinho not so long ago, was sniffing around him for about 25 mil, never came to anything. His release clause is now 80 anyway, so you're going to have to spend a lot more. Then in the middle, absolutely crucial access of Dani Parejo, the captain, and Jeffrey Kondogbia, who is such a crucial player for Valencia in that kind of spine of their team. Wins the ball, runs with the ball, just really grinds it out. And on the left side, the absolute razor-quick pace of Gonzalo Guedes. Absolutely brilliant player. 40 million from PSG in the summer. That's going to feel like a snip in years to come. And then up front, I'm going to go with Rodrigo, who is now playing for the Spain national team, was brilliant last season, and also Kevin Gameiro, who scored his first goal at Real Sociedad at the weekend. So that's my starting 11 for Valencia.
We're going to come to the strengths and weaknesses of Valencia in just a second. But before we get into what they're going to offer us, John, let's hear your starting 11 for this week.
I want David De Gea in goal. The back four, I want to kind of go back to that back four that's been sort of one of the only bright sparks of this season. I'm going to go Luke Shaw on the left-hand side. I'm going to go Diogo Dalot on the right with a central defensive partnership of Victor Lindelof and Chris Smalling. And in midfield, I'm going to go for I'm going to go for a midfield three of Pogba, Fred, and Fellaini, with Fellaini sort of playing that Matic, I guess, holding midfield role. I think Matic needs to sit. He needs to rest, irrespective of form or whatever, what have you. I personally feel like Matic has been very poor this season. He's been inconsistent, and I think that has to do with the fact that he's obviously not – he's 1 year older, and the fact that he's had to go through surgery is a big, big ask. And for him to be playing game day in, day out is a big, big risk. And we might lose him for longer than what we can offer at this point. So I'm going to sit him down. I'm going to go for a midfield three of Pogba, Fellaini, and Fred, and a front three of Rashford, Lukaku, and I'm going to start Mata on the right.
Right then, Scott, let's have a look at your 11.
Well, I'm going to go for David De Gea, the greatest goalkeeper in the world ever, in goal. Diogo Dalot at right back, the best right back on the planet at the moment. Smalling and Lindelof, with Luke Shaw, the best left back on the planet. Part of our dream going forward. I'm actually going to pick Matic. I think Matic will play. I think Fellaini will play, who's just turned into something marvellous this season. I know I'm the only one seeing it. I think Pogba will come back because he's a must in this game. And we'll have Alexis, Rashford, and Lukaku going up front. And I think we'll just absolutely blow Valencia away. We're too strong and too good.
That's a hell of a bold claim. I like that you're putting Rashford on the right-hand side, actually, because I think Rashford has been a little bit of a bright spark. I'm not sure everyone's noticing everything that he's doing. I thought he really contributed to the law having a good game against Young Boys in the last round of the Champions League. Righty then, let's go and talk straight away off the bat about what's going to be our biggest threats. David, obviously coming to you as the expert in this, what do we need to watch out for, and what's the potential weaknesses that we can exploit with the Valencia side?
Okay, so Rashford against Gaia, that works. That works for you guys. I think Gaia is very good going forward, our left back, but I reckon that Marcus Rashford could give him a very, very tough time. In terms of threats for Valencia, well, I mentioned Guedes before. Believe me, this player is, he really shone last season. He tore La Liga apart. There was one game I remember against Real Betis where Valencia won 6-3 away from home, and he was just simply unplayable. It's very difficult. Either you keep very tight to him and try and stop the ball getting to him, but then you're going to just lose that, in terms of that foot race. But if you give him the space to run at you, then he's got all the trickery in the world. So I think that's going to be very, very difficult for Diogo Dalot or whoever you've got a right back to cope with. Danny Parejo from free kicks. I reckon that's another thing. He's absolutely sort of properly accurate from 30, 35 yards out. And Rodrigo with his movement. I think that's the other thing. If you've got Smalling and Lindelof, one of them is going to have to come and get him, but he likes to play in between the lines, and Gamero runs off him. So I think that's the thing, is that do you actually volunteer one of your centre-backs forward to stick with Rodrigo, because he literally is all over the place. And I think really the midfield battle is really where this is going to be won or lost. So if you've got Matic and you've got Fellaini, then that is going to be quite a strong pairing to try and muscle out Kondogbia. That's the main thing there. And then if you've got Pogba free, that's really where I think United can cause damage, because Valencia playing a very, very strict, regimented 4-4-2. And when you see them moving around off the ball, it's like a whole unit of players. 4-4-2, you can see the two backs of four, and Rodrigo and Gamero will be working hard. So you need to free that up somehow. Break it apart in the middle. Kondogbia and Parejo, you need to create the space there, and that's where Pogba can start to exert his influence. So I reckon that tactically, in terms of the personnel, that's where this game could be won or lost.
Did you mention Cheryshev in your starting 11?
No.
Nothing you'll play?
No, he's been all right. He assisted Gamero for the goal against Real Sociedad, but Guedes has been the man who's just been inching his way back into the starting 11. And there's no doubt in my mind. Cheryshev shone at the World Cup, but ultimately that's the first time that a lot of people saw him. He'd really underperformed for Villarreal and indeed Valencia on loan before then. And for me, Guedes is just different gravy. Just simply much, much, much better, much more dangerous. And I think this is where Valencia will go for it against United. They could name Cheryshev, but I don't think that is really in the spirit of how they want to approach this game. I reckon if they're going to go for it and really put the pressure on United with everything that's been going on and off the pitch, I reckon you start with Guedes on the left and the balance of Carlos Soler on the right. And I think that you could potentially see, if Valencia start the game well, United 2-0 down after 35 minutes.
It doesn't even need to be 2 because if at the moment when we concede 1, it's game over. We don't really have the fight in us to come back. Scott, what are you looking at for things that we need to be worried about and things that we can exploit with Valencia?
Well, I didn't have a lot to worry about other than ourselves, but now Mr. Garrido has hit the panic button.
Sorry, man.
Basically, what I worry about is are we going to down tools? I worry about whether our fans are going to get behind the team. We are going to be under pressure. We are going to be chasing the ball for 90 minutes. These are a very technically gifted side. But my worry is what our reactions will be if we go 1-0 down. I mean, let's be honest. Is the players have stunk the place out when it comes to fighting for the badge. They're choosing this argument with the manager, but they're certainly not fighting for the badge. So my worry is that, but I'm trying to be optimistic, and I will be optimistic when I say is the Champions League matters to these players. It definitely helps their marketing value, so I think they'll be up for this just because marketing-wise it's good for them to be in the competition. Otherwise, if it was Valencia in the Premier League, I think it'd be a different story.
John, when we saw the draw made, everyone was looking at Juventus and United, expecting both of those teams to comfortably escape the group. Valencia clearly capable of throwing a spanner in the works. Do you think this game is set up to represent what we saw with Sevilla knocking us out at the round of 16 in the last season?
And it's as sad as it is. I think this is a perfect opportunity for Valencia to actually take a big chance and really exploit Manchester United's weaknesses both on and off the pitch. And just to quickly touch up on it, the reason why I didn't start Martial with Rashford on the right is because I wanted to try and actually predict Jose's 11. And Jose will probably opt for a simpler solution like Mata, because one word that he constantly referenced over and over again was simple. I mean, you heard it. You even heard it on the touchline. He said he was screaming simple, simple, simple to every single player out there. And he's probably going to opt for Mata in that sense. Perhaps maybe if he had the option of hooking Pogba, he probably would have. But of course, he doesn't have anybody better than Pogba in that respect, so he has to play him. But these guys need to play simple, especially winning the battle in the middle of the park is going to be key, and the reason why I opted for a 3-man midfield of somebody like Fred, Pogba with Fellaini in that holding midfield role is because I think we'll be able to outnumber and win in the middle of the park, and then transition to the final third with a much, much more simple style of play, and then maybe perhaps using Mata as that linkage player to feed the balls to the likes of Rashford on the left or Lukaku up forward or however the transition may occur. But nonetheless, this is all Valencia's to win. If they win this is going to spell doom and gloom. The final M should probably be there, and then the pen is just going to be just before lifted off. And it's going to be very, very scary, but hopefully that doesn't happen.
All right, John, shut up. I can actually see the last 10 minutes of that game being played out in a half-empty Stretford end with people just swearing all around me. I can visualise it right now. I can literally see it right now. It's going to be gross if we don't win this. And even if we do win this, I still think people will be complaining. Give us your score prediction, John. Let's stay with you then. How was it going down against Valencia in the Champions League?
I'm going to go 1-1. I'm hoping we end this in a draw.
Scott, what score is it going to be?
5-0.
We're not losing 5-0, Scott. We're not that bad.
No, you said
we can get a goal.
5-0.
I just think we're gonna turn up and just do something that none of us. I just think we're gonna win, but I'm gonna say 5-0 because that's what I'm sticking with for the rest of the season.
Time did you start drinking this morning?
It's just it's intravenous. It just goes in 24 hours a day.
David, what score do you think it's going to be?
2-2. Valencia twice in front. United twice pegging them back. Jose to cling on to his job, but kind of false dawn, really. I think that it will eventually end for Jose, but this game will try and show some fighting qualities, but it won't really prove them properly. Sorry, man.
What do you lot reckon? Get it in the comments. What score is it going to be? Who's going to be the first goal scorer? And will Jose Mourinho see the week out? That's a question we're asking now, I guess. Get all your stuff in the comments below. Make sure you tune into Full Time Devils for all of the match day coverage. We've got Bosch Cam coming out later on. Definitely stick around for that, as well as all the usual stuff on a match day. And I guess we will see you post-match when It's all happened, and we'll find out what's going to go on from here. Thanks to these guys. Make sure to go and follow all of their channels. The links are in the description below. We will see you in the next one. Laters.